All right, everybody, welcome back. We're diving into something I think a lot of you are probably interested in, which is how to invest your money without having to pay taxes on it.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good to me.
It sounds pretty good to me, too. Basically, today we're going through an article that talks about all the different ways to invest your money tax-free.
That's right.
And we're going to go over all that. But remember, we're not financial advisors.
That's correct.
So this is not financial advice, but just some stuff that we found interesting and think that you guys will, too.
Exactly.
So I guess the first thing we should talk about is retirement accounts.
Sure.
Because everybody's got to think about
Right.
retirement, right? And we all know what 401ks are and what IRAs are, but a lot of people don't know the difference between tax deferred and tax free when it comes to those things.
Right, right. Yeah, so I think one way to think about this is the difference between paying taxes later, and paying taxes never. And so when you're talking about traditional 401ks or traditional IRAs, you're getting a tax break up front. When you put money in, you're not paying taxes on that money right now.
Right.
But you will have to pay taxes on it when you take it out.
Right.
Whereas with a Roth 401k or Roth IRA, you're not getting that tax break up front, but you don't have to pay any taxes when you take the money out later.
Gotcha.
And so, it's really about, when do you want to pay the taxes? Is it better to pay the taxes now or later?
That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, it is a good question. Depends on your tax situation, I guess, really.
Exactly.
But either way, yeah, retirement accounts, good to think about. Now, let's talk about something that, well, this might not apply to everybody, but if you have a high deductible health plan, there's something called an HSA.
An HSA, yep.
And this can be really advantageous because of the way the taxes work on these things. I don't know, maybe you can explain.
Sure, yeah. So HSAs are health savings accounts, and they're really great because, they have this triple tax advantage, right?
Right.
So the money you put in is tax deductible.
Okay.
Then the money grows tax-free, and then when you take it out for qualified medical expenses, it comes out tax-free.
So you're never paying taxes on that money.
That's right.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Everybody should do that.
Well, not everybody, only if you qualify.
Right. You have to have that high deductible health plan.
That's right.
Okay. So that's something to think about. And speaking of things to think about, for people with families, people who are thinking about college, either for themselves or for their kids, 529 plans are an interesting thing to consider,
Yeah.
especially these days when college is so expensive.
Yes.
Maybe you can talk about those a little bit.
Yeah, so 529 plans are basically savings plans that are specifically designed for education expenses. And the great thing about them is that the earnings grow tax-free. And then when you take the money out for qualified education expenses like tuition, books, room and board, that money is also tax-free.
That's pretty amazing. So you're, setting aside this money and then it grows and you don't have to pay taxes on it. Wow, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
It is a good deal.
Especially if you've got a couple kids, that can add up.
Oh, yeah. College is expensive these days. So it's, anything you can do to help save for it is a good idea.
Right. And anything you can do to reduce your tax burden is also a good idea, it sounds like.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. So we've talked about retirement. We've talked about healthcare. We've talked about education. Are there any other sort of tax-advantaged options that people might want to consider?
Sure. Yeah, there's, a couple things. I think one thing that might be less familiar to people are municipal bonds.
Municipal bonds,
Okay.
so those.
So municipal bonds are basically you're loaning money to the government, to your local government or your state government.
Okay.
And they use that money for public projects like building schools or roads or things like that.
Oh, so you're like helping out your community, essentially.
Exactly. And in return, you get interest payments. But the great thing about municipal bonds is that the interest payments are often tax-free.
Wow. So you're helping your community and you're not paying taxes. That's a win-win, it sounds like.
It is.
Okay. So municipal bonds, something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, I've heard about these, they're really popular in Canada, these TFSAs.
Yes. TFSAs, those are tax-free savings accounts, and they're quite popular in Canada, but they're not available in the U.S.
Ah, too bad.
Yeah, but they're, they're similar to Roth IRAs in that, you put money in after taxes, and then the growth is tax-free and the withdrawals are tax-free.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, for our Canadian listeners, something to think about there. And then one other thing that I wanted to touch on that was in this article is this thing called capital gains exemptions.
Oh, yeah, capital gains exemptions. So, capital gains are the profits you make when you sell an asset, right?
Okay.
Like if you sell a stock for more than you bought it for, or if you sell a house for more than you bought it for, that's a capital gain.
Right.
And normally you have to pay taxes on those gains,
Right.
but there are some exemptions in certain situations where you don't have to pay taxes on those gains, or you pay a reduced rate.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like, for example, if you sell your primary residence, the house you live in, you can exclude a certain amount of the capital gains from taxes.
Ah, okay. Interesting. So it's kind of like there are these loopholes, I guess you could call them, that can help you out.
Yeah, you could think of it that way, but,
Yep.
capital gains taxes can be pretty complex, and the exemptions can be, a little bit tricky to navigate.
Right. Right. So it's probably a good idea to talk to a professional about that, right?
Exactly. If you're thinking about selling assets, talk to a financial advisor or a tax professional, and they can help you figure out, how to minimize your taxes.
Gotcha. So yeah, definitely talk to a professional. Good
Mhm.
advice. Well, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Mm.
So we've gone over all the different ways to invest your money tax-free. Um, we think is there anything else that we should add?
No, I think we covered all the main points.
I think so too.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully this has been helpful for our listeners. And as we said, we're not financial advisors, so
Right.
do your own research, talk to a professional before you make any decisions.
Yeah, this is just informational.
Right.
I
But yeah, I think this is all pretty fascinating stuff. I think a lot of people don't even realize that all these options exist.
I think you're right.
You
Yeah.
know, and so it's good to just be aware of these things.
Absolutely. It's always good to be informed and make the most of the opportunities that are out there.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So I guess my takeaway from all of this is that taxes are complicated,
They are.
but there are ways to minimize them, and it's worth it to put in the time and effort to learn about these things and figure out what works best for you.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the key takeaways is that, your tax situation is unique, right? And
Right.
so, what works for one person might not work for another.
Right.
And so it's really about, figuring out what's best for you and your individual circumstances.
Absolutely. So yeah, do your research, talk to a professional, and find out what works best for you. That's our advice for today.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. I hope you learned something new,
Thanks for having me.
and we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye. Okay. That was great. Really fascinating stuff. I'm actually going to go talk to my financial advisor now and see what they think. I'm especially interested in those municipal bonds. They sound really cool. Um, and yeah, just thinking about, how much money I could save on taxes if I really put in the effort to learn about all this stuff. It's definitely worth it. So yeah, that's something I'm going to be thinking about for a while. And hopefully you guys are too. All right. We'll see you next time.